Okay, essential question. How and why did states in the Americas develop and change over time? So let's start with geography. So we're going to come over to our map here, the America we know and love. But this isn't the America that we're going to be talking about. We're talking about the America down south here. But guess what? We're not even talking about America, right? We're talking about the land before it was called America, named after Amerigo Vespucci, right? Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. All those explorers, right? We're talking about the time period before them. Okay, we're talking about the Aztecs who lived in this region of Mexico. We're talking about the Mayans who lived a little bit further south, kind of really out on this peninsula. And then my favorite, we go down south and we're talking about the Incas who live in the spine of South America, up in the Andes Mountains that run along there. Okay, so those are the three empires, states that we are talking about. Okay, so now, instead of going in depth on those three people, I want to kind of go really big picture. And I want to talk about why do humans create states in the first place? Okay, and I want you to think about this. This is a really good tool for interpreting history in general. What do people want? Okay, at a base level, what do people want? When you go to bed, you want to be in a nice warm bed that's dry, comfortable, right? You've got shelter. You want to go to bed full. You don't want to go to bed hungry. That's food. You want to go to bed not thirsty, right? You want to go to bed having had all those basic needs, okay? So that's one of the chief reasons why we create states, why we create empires, is because they can organize those resources. They can make sure that their people get what they need, because if they don't, they just won't exist, right? So it's not just a purpose of a state, it's a requirement of a state. If a state isn't making sure their people get those basic things, it's just going to dissolve. So that's the first purpose of a state. Make sure people get those basic needs. So the next basic need is, of course, they don't want to have to be worried about being shanked in the middle of the night. You might have a full belly, not be thirsty, and be sleeping in a warm bed, but you're still not happy if you're getting shanked. All right? People want to be safe. Okay, so that's the other reason why we have a state, is to enforce law and order. Okay, so safety is a big part of that, but there's another part of it, right? We make laws based on what we think is right and wrong. Okay, not just on keeping everybody safe, because generally that's how we define right and wrong, but there's also certain topics, right? Things that we don't like, things that we think are taboo. Okay, abortion in the United States, okay, used to be very illegal for a long time. Across the world, it used to be very illegal, right? Because they thought it was taboo, not necessarily impacting the safety of any one person, depending on your views. That's quite a contentious statement, really. Okay, but we don't like it. We think it's taboo. So we got to make sure that people can't do it. Okay, so those are the two reasons why we create states. Now, the next piece is, how do they keep their power? Okay, they keep their power by maintaining those things. Like I was saying, if you aren't meeting those basic needs, right, of organizing the resources, making sure people aren't starving, they're safe, yada yada. If you're not doing those things, they just disappear. Okay, so that's how they keep their power. They make sure those things are always in surplus, that people always have what they need in terms of basic resources. But the other piece there is religion, right? Because when I was talking about the taboo things, the things we don't like, okay, they have to justify it themselves, right? A state kind of has to justify itself and give itself a purpose, a reason for being there, when people forget that, it feeds them and does all the rest of those things. It has to have a purpose. So that's religion. Okay, religion is very, very important, especially in this time period. So that is just a general rule when we talk about states across the world. You can apply this in Africa. You can apply this in Asia. You can apply this in Europe. Okay, just also happens to be in the Americas. Okay, now let's see how this looks in those three different empires: Aztecs, Incas, and Mayas. Well, in terms of organizing resources, So I'm talking about keeping their power. So organizing resources. I told you that the Incas lived along that spine in the Andes. If in case you've ever walked across a mountain, it's not easy. Well, the Incas built a road system so that their people always had the resources that they need. And that was something the Incas did really well, was they had that road system. Now, the Aztecs relied more on religion, okay, to demonstrate the power of their military, because they had a badass military. To demonstrate the power of that military, well, they tend to cut people's head off in human sacrifice to their gods. Now, the people they killed were almost always high-ranking members of their enemies, right? So what kind of statement is that, right? Joe Schmo, Aztec farmer, waddles his way up to Tenochtitlan and is like, whoa, this is quite the ceremony, right? We got the big guy up there. He looks like he's the head of the military, big buff guy, all dressed up fancy, and he's lopping heads off of people. You don't want to mess with that guy, right? That's very intimidating. It shows the power of their religion, okay? So that's what we want to think about whenever we talk about states. How do they address those two things? How do they address law and order? How do they address the needs of their people? Is this a longer one? Ooh, it's a really long one. Anyways, lots of good stuff there, though.